Hello and how is it going, everyone? It is Skullzi here with the latest gaming news, rumors, and speculation. I've been busy with a few IRL quest chains over the last week or so, but don't worry, I am back, and wow, do we have a lot to talk about. That Starfield showcase definitely didn't disappoint, and it showed us a lot more Starfield than I thought we'd even see. I'm still busy working on a huge in-depth Starfield showcase breakdown video, which will be uploaded very soon. Trust me, it'll be worth the wait, but in today's video, I still have plenty of new Starfield information to break down, so let's not waste any more time and get straight into today's content. The focus on today's video is breaking down all the post-Xbox Bethesda Showcase Starfield information. All this information comes from a handful of Bethesda interviews and official Bethesda statements, some of which you might have missed and all of which is very interesting. The hype for this game exploded with that Starfield Showcase, and following the original Xbox Bethesda event, 2 days later we got the extended Xbox Bethesda event, which featured new updates and announcements, including an interview featuring Bethesda's Pete Hines, everyone's favorite Uncle Pete. Uncle Pete actually gave us a lot more Starfield information, which I'll now use words to break all this information down with. First of all, it was confirmed in the Starfield gameplay showcase that the player character will actually be able to fly their own spaceships, meaning we as a player can fly our own ships, and on top of this, there's actually space combat as well. In the gameplay shown, it appeared like certain parts of spaceships could be damaged and shot off entirely, such as disabling a ship's weapon systems or even its engines to prevent it from flying away. Pete Hines also mentioned in this interview that boarding and pirating other spaceships would indeed be possible within Starfield, so I'm assuming if you disable the ship's engines and weapons that you'd be able to board the ship and steal their cargo. And this is a bit of speculation here, but maybe we get to decide what to do with the rival ship's crew. Do we decide to be evil and kill them off and execute them, or do we let them live? This could perhaps lead to a potential morality system being in Starfield, and I'm curious what you all think about a morality system actually being in this game. Let me know down in the comments below. Next up, it's confirmed you can build your own spaceships within Starfield as well. Pete Hines mentioned that spaceships require a great deal of building material though, which you can gather yourself by spending a lot of time grinding away, mining and collecting resources, or if you want to skip the grind, you can spend a bunch of money and just buy all of it. Seems like spaceships will require a lot more materials than other stuff we can make in the game though. Pete Hines also mentions that every ship make and model is customizable to a certain degree, from the components and module quality to the shape and color of each individual piece. Next, Pete mentions that the world will react to the player, their backstories, and their choices. Bethesda wants the player to be able to try stuff and see what the consequences would be, to see how the world would react. Bethesda believes the world will react realistically to what you do within the game's world and the choices you make. So if you decide to go around and just shoot up a bunch of stuff, steal a bunch of stuff, there will be realistic consequences. And stealing seems to be something you'll be able to do as well, because Pete Hines confirms that you'll be able to steal in-game, and like previous Bethesda Game Studios games, the objects and items within the game world are in real world objects, meaning you can interact with them, pick them up, and of course steal them, which leads me to believe that there is most likely a bounty and crime system as well, which shouldn't be that much of a surprise because a bounty and crime system has been in previous Bethesda games. Pete goes on by saying that in-game skills determine how good your character is at combat with various weapon types, and as you level these skills through level ups and challenges, you increase your damage, accuracy, attack speed, reload speed, and so on. Nothing groundbreaking here, but it's nice to see Starfield's skill system does indeed have a bit of depth to it. Pete finished up this interview by stating that players will have vastly different experiences in their individual Starfield playthroughs. Most quests will branch off into different pathways depending on player choices, skills, backstories, and more, and there are more quests than any previous Bethesda Game Studios RPG yet. And as in usual BGS RPG fashion, you can ignore the main quest as much as you like. The main quest is huge here though, and offers a larger quest chain than ever before as well. And finally, you can cause chaos and the world will react as you'd expect, which is something we touched on earlier, but this actually has me curious as to just how grand this chaos can be and what the consequences would be, and if there's a potential faction reputation system perhaps as well, because if you shoot up a faction city and you escape with your life and then you try to go back there later or try to interact with that faction, it seems like it would be kind of immersion breaking if they just accept you back without consequence or without even mentioning anything. I feel like there will be potential blacklisting depending on what you do in this game, which could definitely lead to vastly different gameplay experiences like Pete Hines keeps talking about. That's it for the Pete Hines interview though. Next up, an interview that went down an hour after the Bethesda Xbox Extended Showcase. IGN interviewed Daedric Lord of Selling Skyrim, Todd Howard himself, and Todd gave us a bit of interesting information not only about Starfield, but brace yourself for this. Todd used the Thune on us. He spoke powerful words, and those words were Fallout 5. Todd confirms once and for all that Bethesda remembers single-player Fallout games exist, as Fallout 5 is now confirmed to be the next game after The Elder Scrolls 6, so you can expect Fallout 5 likely sometime around 2030, if not longer. Basically, don't get too excited quite yet because it's gonna be a while, but nonetheless, it's great to finally have this information confirmed, which is what most people were expecting anyway. Next up, Todd touches on the discussion surrounding the game's more than 1,000 planets. Todd ensures that Starfield will have plenty of handcrafted content, in fact, likely more than any previous Bethesda game studios has had to date, and on top of this, the handcrafted elements will be blended well with procedural generation, as each of the 1,000 planets will be fully explorable, so some procedural generation is definitely necessary. Bear in mind though, you don't need to go to all of these planets, they're just there for those that want to, and there's still plenty of secrets awaiting discovery out there. Todd mentions that Starfield's main quest is around 20% longer than their previous games, and it'll run about 30 to 40 hours. The main quests will take you to many different areas and will feature several branching quest chains that can drastically change depending on players and their choices. Todd also mentions that the game will feature the typical step-out moment that you'd expect from a Bethesda RPG, such as stepping out of the vault for the first time in a Fallout game and seeing the world before you, and all the interesting places you can travel to and explore. Todd states that Starfield will not only have one step-out moment, it'll actually have several. Todd mentions that the game has 4 major cities, which means that there are likely several smaller settlements and locations we can discover as well. Todd mentions that New Atlantis, one of the 4 major cities, is actually the largest city Bethesda has ever made within any other games yet, which definitely has me hyped. What has my interest, though, is what this 4th mysterious main city could be. We know about Neon, Aquila, and New Atlantis, so what could this 4th unannounced city be? Perhaps Alien Town? Next, Todd mentioned something that has mixed reviews amongst the community. While you can definitely fly your spaceship, you can't manually fly it from space down onto a planet, or from a planet up into space. It's likely handled via a cutscene or an in-game autopilot procedure, which is indeed a bit disappointing, as one of my favorite things about No Man's Sky was passing through the atmosphere of a planet for the first time and watching the planet's surface appear beneath me. It's kind of like an organic step-out moment within itself, and I feel like this is a huge missed opportunity here. And finally, Todd mentioned Starfield's combat is heavily inspired by MechWarrior and FTL, which definitely gets me hyped as I grew up playing MechWarrior Mercenaries. I love those games. Todd didn't necessarily go into exact details though about what he meant by this, but I assume he means that the ship and outpost parts are modular, meaning you can shoot a ship's weapon systems to disable their weapons, kind of like what we talked about earlier, but I still expect ships and stuff to have their own individual HP bars and their individual components and modules that have their own HP as well, which means the combat system likely has a lot more depth to it than we'd expect. And finally, Starfield does not feature a voiced protagonist. That way the game can be as immersive as possible, as Bethesda wants Starfield to have a high replayability and immersion factor, and I'm in favor of this. That is everything though. That is everything there is to find regarding post-showcase Starfield information, and I believe it won't stop here. We'll likely get plenty more Starfield interviews and Constellation Log update videos leading up until the game's release date later this year. And remember, expect my massive Starfield gameplay showcase breakdown video to be uploaded very soon. It'll be worth the wait, and it's a pretty long video. And as always, be sure to give a video a thumbs up if you enjoy the content. Be sure to subscribe to help grow the community and the channel. It's actually a huge help. And finally, huge shout out to the following amazing people for going above and beyond to support the channel and the community. Get your name added to this permanent feature video shout out list by supporting the channel over on Ko-fi, Patreon, or here on YouTube as an exclusive channel member. Links for all this and more are down in the description below, as well as a link for Skullzi merchandise and the Skullzi Discord server. And as always, thank you for watching. Be sure to tune in next time when Starfield content has finally entered a whole nother level.
It just works.